Tim.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm pretty good.
You're pretty good?
I got a little tough night, all-nighter, red eye from Mexico.
Last night.
Last night, yeah.
Wow.
So,
well, even more special that you're joining us.
Yeah, from my nephew's room. This is not my room. All these pennants.
No, not yours.
I came from Mexico last night.
Okay, so let's start off with telling everyone your name, where you're from, what you do, all the good stuff.
My name is Tim Shields. I am originally from New Jersey, but I've been living in Seattle for the last almost 18 years. But I've been living in Mexico for the second time since mid-September. I'm a writer. I used to do marketing and advertising. I mean, I've been, writing since 17. I mean, it's been my goal to be living this life since I was 17. And I think I think I'm on my 53rd journal since September 29th, 1991. Wow. My life is documented for better or worse or embarrassing and all that other good stuff.
So I would like to talk about this.
Everyone
can see it. This is Tim's book, A Curious Year in the Great Vivarium Experiment. And every time I tell someone that title, they're like, huh?
Yeah, like, what the hell does that mean?
Yeah, no, I love it. I love the title because it obviously catches people's attention. So I have started reading it. I'm a little less than halfway through, and I can't stay away from it. So please share with everybody a little bit about that journey and how this book has come to fruition.
Well, I guess you could say the inciting incident, not the inspiring incident, was when my mom passed away in 2010. And my dad passed away in 2004, my mom in 2010. So I kind of had like a decade of sick parents. So when everybody was going on, vacations and starting to make money and doing all this stuff, I was going home to New Jersey to visit sick parents. And I always knew as a young person, young writer, reading like in high school and college, like Steinbeck, Joyce, Kerouac, I was like, if you want to have something interesting to write about, you have to do big and interesting things. And I had done a couple attempts, like my first solo adult trip, I took off. I had a job and a relationship end in the same week, and I took off to Tanzania and volunteered in an orphanage for a month. So then my mom passed away, and I thought I was prepared. But I say in the book, like when a parent passes away, it's like a tornado or tsunami sweeps through your life, and no matter how hard, how much prepared you think you are, it's like something intangible. You're trying to rebuild, and something intangible is lost forever. I was home for like my mom's memorial, and a friend of my sister's was like, if you want to write, then you just go somewhere cheap like India. And of course, this is just kind of the way my life works. So I was like, oh, I never thought of India. And India started popping up everywhere. And I was like, I guess I'm going to India. And around that time too, I was super lost. Like, again, it was like the ground gave out. And, I thought I was prepared for my mom's death, and it just has a way of shaking you to the core. And my sister's friend, who's like an energy healer type person, had like a session with her, and she's like, okay, you're a writer. I want you to do this exercise. I want you to write down 5 things you're grateful for and 5 things you want to create. And you're going to find that the things that you create today are going to be things that you're grateful for in the future. And I was like, I'll try anything. So I went and bought a little notebook and started. I wasn't working at the time. I went home to say goodbye to my mom, like the last time I saw her. And I was only home for like a week. And then I come back, and the ad agency I was working for was like, sorry, you don't have a job anymore. I'm like, really, you heartless bastards? So I basically had like 2 months of just waiting for my mom to pass away. Started writing these things, and the first thing was like, I need a job right now. And I was like, I surrender money. I just want the right job for right now. And, I want to have really cool people to work with. I want freedom. And I mean, within like a week and a half, I got this job, and the designer I worked with designed my book cover. He became one of my closest friends. And I'd also written like, I want a windfall of money. I want a new MacBook Pro. The thing with this job was, it was a 3-month contract. They extended it to 6 months. And I was like, but I'm leaving at 6 months. And
at this time, did you know you had planned on going to
yeah,
India?
yeah. It was like, I was creating that in my journal, like my travel and all that stuff. And I wanted to volunteer for, be of service. And that's a whole other story. But I'm right about to leave to India. And my boss is like, would you be interested in working 10 to 20 hours a week? And I was like, hell yeah, that's a no-brainer. It's like making a professional corporate salary over even 10 or 20 hours, in India. And most of the time I'm living for free in India. And so then fast forward the end of 3 months in India, and I come home to surprise my family for a family reunion. I go back to Seattle because I have a free flight to which is a whole other manifesting thing, free flight back to Asia. And I go through the office for like 3 or 4 days. And my boss pulls me aside and he's like, you're going to need money to travel. Bill me for 30 hours a week for the final 3 months of your contract. So I went back to Asia to work with a friend of mine who was like a school photographer at international schools. So I'm getting a corporate salary, and then I'm getting $500 a week, free room, booze, board at like business class hotels. And I'm just like a backpacker. So that windfall of money came to fruition.
Wow.
So, I mean, I really only had enough money to travel for like 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. And, 15 months later, I came home with more money than I left with, paid off a credit card on the road, lived my final 3 months in Berlin, which is not part of the book. Maybe that'll be part of at some point. The second, yeah. But, I wanted to be of service, and I wound up getting connected to this guy who's maybe one of the world's most important environmental lawyers. And I just got to like hang out with him and tail him for 2 months.
And he is in the book, but it kind of in a different context.
Yeah, like a little bit of a fictionalized version. A lot of the stuff came out of my journals. So, those conversations were sort of came out of my journals. And they're also things that I want to say. That's part of the reason why I fictionalized it, because there is something I'm trying to say, and I needed to, string together this story. Somebody asked me if I wanted to volunteer. I was like, sure, I'll volunteer in Eco Ashram. I have no idea what that means, but sweeping floors and making beds is not above me. So turns out this guy needed like a grant writer, and I'd never written grants, but I was like, man, I can figure this out. So I got to if I had met this guy, if I knew who he was first, I would have been intimidated, but he was like, I met him as the man first, and he was just like this beautiful, amazing, gentle, but powerful and committed soul to like the voiceless people of India. And I met this one American scientist over there, and he's like, this guy is the most important lawyer in India since Gandhi. And like, I just got to hang out with him, and it just came out of like, I want to be of service, like for my good and the highest good of, that can. So
simple.
Yeah.
Yet we make it so complicated.
Oh man, I'm in so far in the unknown right now, and I'm just complicating the hell out of everything.
There's a part in the beginning, and I don't want to give too much of the book away, but there's a part in the beginning when you first arrive in India, and you go from, fetal position pretty much in the bed, like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
To 24 hours later, having an amazing conversation, and, and that to me is such a good description actually of once you kind of start on a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Where you can go from, oh my gosh, what am I doing? What is this? I'm in the unknown. I'm complicating it, to 24 hours later, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And this is exactly why I do this work.
Yeah. I mean, your life can change in a second. And the old program would have been like, my life could fall apart in a second, and I could be on the street homeless or something. But really it's just meeting one person. I mean, I'm hoping that the right person discovers this book, and because I think it's much bigger than me. It's not about me. Since I was like 17, I used to just be like, use me as an instrument of peace, like let me be your voice piece, your voice, whatever. And you know, I got connected with like two huge people in the transformation field. And I mean, I could not have like a better mentor. Once you get on the path, it's like you're moving deeper into this labyrinth. And like I've arrived, and then to this next level, and you're like, shit, man, there's like 7 doors here, and I don't know which one to open. I'm freaking out, but you just have to like get quiet, get still, and trust that voice, and trust that the path gets you to where you're supposed to go. And something I was thinking about and talking about a while back with my ex-girlfriend was like, it almost doesn't, I think it doesn't almost matter like the choice you make, because, you know, you get to a fork in the road and you go this way or this way, but eventually those things are going to find you here with this lesson you need to learn.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, easier said than done. Like,
said than done. Sure.
Easy to rationalize intellectually, to be in the labyrinth.
Yeah, as we all know. So talk to me a little bit about how you found the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, how that came about for you, and how that has transformed your journey as well.
Wow. Well, I went to a workshop in 2010, Kripalu in Massachusetts, and I went with both of my I went with both of my sisters, and I'm at a child-sized desk here, so we're occasionally going to
work with you. Yeah.
One of my sisters was like, you got to hear this guy talk. And so we went, and my other sister kept standing up the whole time. She's like, her back was hurt. And at the end of the session, he was like, I want to talk to you. And she's like, oh my God, what did I do? He's like, what's going on? And she had hurt her back sleigh riding. And he's like, well, let's go find a room. So we went, and he did an adjustment on her. And it turns out that before I was born, my family lived one town over from his family in New Jersey.
Wow.
When, you know, the Jersey thing, you're like, you went to that effing pizza place?
Yeah, I know.
Scotto's Soda Wing. Yeah, at the time I was trying to put my first sort of book proposal out into the world about this woman who started this orphanage in Tanzania. It's called the Rift Valley Children's Village. It's amazing organization if anybody wants to look it up. We just he's like, I think I can find you an agent. So we kind of kept in touch, and I would be going to workshops.
And had you meditated before that? Had you been a quote unquote spiritual person?
Oh, I've been like very like spiritual my whole life. Like, you know, I grew up like my parents were like holy rollers, like daily mass, and, you know, put me through Catholic school, 2nd grade through college. So yeah, I mean, I since I was like 17, I was like writing about a spiritual revolution. You know, I knew like that there are footprints all over the world. We've discovered most of the world, maybe the ocean, maybe a couple jungles here and there, but then the next sort of journey is the inner journey. And I just knew this at like a young age, and I was always writing about this stuff. I was even writing about like time and space, and, you know, I thought the way to transcend it was like mushrooms at a Grateful Dead show or something like that. But
which is a way.
I mean, that opened me up to a much like the first sort of experience of connection to everybody and everything. But so anyway,
before you go ahead, let me stop you real quick. So you were raised in the Catholic community.
Yeah.
So when you say you were a spiritual person, was it based on that cultural belief?
It was kind of the foundation. And then I think like funny enough, like one of my most influential books at like 17 or something was The Tao of Pooh. You know that book by Benjamin Hoff? It's basically Taoism explained through like Winnie the Pooh. So like Winnie the Pooh is the way, you know, he just moves through life, and there is no constriction, and like,
I love that.
Eeyore's like mopey and depressed. Piglet's like always worrying. So it really kind of, it was like it was my first introduction to Eastern philosophy. And then I became like a philosophy major. And then I was really interested in like near-death experiences, like reading books about that stuff. And I remember coming home one time from college and having this conversation with my mom, and, it was like so far out of Catholicism. And she's like, what are they teaching you there at this Catholic school? I'm like, they're teaching me to think, Mom.
Yeah.
I was like a philosophy major. And so, yeah, it was like, religion is like a foundation, and, it works for some people, but I think like the more you get into it, it's all the same. It's just myth stories that are trying to explain the origin of the universe, our purpose, all that stuff. I was always saying to Joe, like, we'd be great collaborators. And when I left that workshop in 2010, I said to my sister, I'm going to write for him someday. And turns out he wound up asking me to help him edit Becoming Supernatural. Yeah, I mean, that was like a dream opportunity. And at my first advanced workshop, one of the things in my mind movie was, I want to create a mentor. Then he showed up a couple months later. But
and you'd been going to workshops throughout the years.
Yeah, but that was back when it was like level 1, level 2, level 3, progressive, and then the advanced, and it's just been this amazing. Like, I was so blown away in Cancun, like the evolution of what he has created. Anyway, my first advanced workshop, I was just meditating the entire time on like the right conditions to show up to bring my book to fruition. Because I was already maybe 3 or 4 years into the process, working on it, putting it down. This is shit. Nobody's gonna want to ever read it. And so 4 days of meditating on that, I land in Seattle. I get this, and I was a freelancer, so it was like, things are great, and then you hit the brakes, and you're like, you got to scramble, change your energy to search for work. And so I literally land in Seattle after the first advanced workshop, and I get this message from this guy on LinkedIn. Hey, I left Microsoft after 10 years. I started at this new job. And I was like, well, this is interesting. And then I take the train back into the city, and I run into him on a street corner. He's like, you really got to apply for this job. And I was like, all right, I guess this is on. So I get this job making more money than I ever thought I would make, doing pretty easy stuff. And I got a bonus for the first time in my life. And so the whole purpose of getting a full-time job was I went to a coffee shop every day for 30 minutes to an hour, maybe more on a really good day, to work on my book before work. And it took me 6 months to get through this draft that I was stuck on for a really long time. And at the end of 6 months, I was like, holy shit, I think I have a book here. I get laid off at the exact same time. And, but I was in such an amazing space. I'm like, what amazing thing's about to happen? Who reaches out to me? But Dr. J, not Dr. Julius Erving from the 76ers.
Right.
Philadelphia 76ers. But yeah, so.
The lesser important Dr. J.
Well, I don't know. I think this is the bigger, more contemporary one.
Right. There we go.
With a longer shelf life.
A little shorter.
Exactly. More Italian. But yeah, so we started doing some, I started doing some editorial work for him. And, it was like, then I reached out to this company who was courting me at the same time. And they're like, we just filled the position. I was like, damn it. They called me Monday. They were like, what if we could create a position for you? I was like, well, this is interesting. So they offer me a job, $40,000 more than their original insulting offer previously. And I got a director title. I was like, what? Fake it till you make it. And, but it took them like 3 or 4 weeks to get the paperwork together. Then when they offered me the job, I was like, well, could I start in like 4 or 5 weeks? And they were like, we waited long enough. Sure. So I took off to South Africa. My dream was just to be able to have this life of freedom to work on my own stuff wherever I wanted. And, I worked on like a draft in South Africa. And the first morning actually in South Africa, I was in J Bay, and I couldn't sleep, obviously, because of whatever that's called, jet lag. And I had this beautiful, amazing place, like French doors that opened up onto like the ocean. And had an amazing meditation. And I'm just like sitting there in my terry cloth bathrobe, like sipping tea. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to do now. So I'm going to go for a run. And I went for a run, which I wasn't really running at the time, and you know, my favorite song, which is a song I talk about in the book as what I call quantum string, which are like these strings throughout time that link your life. And you know, my favorite song, Eyes of the World by the Grateful Dead, started playing, and I was like running, and I just started sobbing, and I was like, holy shit, I did it. I'm doing it. You know, like, I mean, Joe would call that, this was like pre that language, but now
Waking up in your dream.
Yeah, which is so amazing and powerful. I'm ready to wake up from this nightmare. I'm not, it's not a nightmare, but just I'm ready to wake up out of the unknown into the next part. But yeah, so then that winter I was in South Africa, and then I come back and I go skiing in Whistler, and then I go to another advanced workshop in Tacoma, and I start this job. And I think I'm going to be at this job for, you know, probably till now, you know, I'm like, until I can jump out of the corporate world and live on my own as a writer. And, you know, 9 months in, I get a call from Joe, and he's like, what would you think about helping me edit, you know, becoming Supernatural? And I was like, watch how fast I quit my job. So I quit my job, worked on that for 6 months. When I was done with that, I asked him, I was like, if you could go anywhere to finish a book, where would you go? And he said, San Miguel de Allende, Mexico. You'll never want to leave. And of course I had never heard of it. And then it showed up everywhere. And so I wound up going down to San Miguel to finish this book. So like my 10th or 11th, 12th draft or something on that book. So it took about 6 or 7 years to do, but this is what I've been trying to express my entire life in like a shitty screenplay and, you know, all of these other kind of failed attempts. It's like you have to find the structure and the foundation to build this house upon. And also I just, you know, everything is really timing, and I probably didn't have maybe the skill yet as a writer, or just enough life experience.
So you finished the book down in Mexico.
I did, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. And when was the official release date?
June 21st, this year.
Wow.
2018. Yeah.
So talk about how that felt.
How did that feel? It was utterly terrifying. Like the previous fall, so like fall 2017. I mean, if you go to my blog at curiousyear.com/blog, probably the first 1 through 6 or something are kind of about the journey of putting this book out. And I mean, I was so terrified, and like the feeling in my body, all this anxiety, I was like, this is why people jump off bridges or become, you know, alcoholics and drug addicts. I'm not just telling a story. It's my heart and my soul. And I'm, you know, I just think my personal mission statement as a writer is I translate light, frequency, and energy into story so as to lead others to their truth. So, you know, it's bigger than just like wanting recognition as a writer or something. Like I'm trying to, it sounds so kind of arrogant, but like wake people up, you know? And
absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I'm actually like, I've been in Mexico, on this wall. I have all these Post-it notes. So I'm trying to put together the next 3 books, and I know what the titles are. I know how they connect. I know what each one is about. So, I mean, I was originally calling it just personally the Consciousness Trilogy, but now I'm living in the 4th book. And so yeah.
Living in the 4th book. I like that.
Yeah. And it took a very unexpected turn, what I thought it was about. And so yeah, when I'm done with this phase, I'll let you know how it ends. But
okay.
Yeah.
We'll read about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what an amazing journey. So tell everybody who's watching, if there is one piece of advice, you know, I loved how you said you write these books to help wake people up. That's my passion too. That's why I share, you know, people's stories.
Yeah.
What is one piece of advice, one tool, something that you could say to somebody that's watching that may be struggling on their own journey. Maybe they're at where you were at when your mom passed away, and you know, you found yourself with no job and just kind of in that lonely, depressed state. What's one piece of advice you could give them in moving forward?
Well, this is this will be a pep talk to myself, because I feel like the last couple months have been as tumultuous as when my mom passed away, or then my house burned down, which is a whole other story. But you know, I feel like there are these phases in life, and they're kind of like incubation periods, and that's kind of where I am. And you just got to keep doing the work and keep powering through, you know, and keep consciously creating every day. The gratitude intention exercise in my book, I think, is a great mindful tool. I started this other thing called the being experiment. So you could go to Facebook and just put the being experiment in. And it's just kind of like this. It was something I was going to do for myself that came out of a meditation. And then I shared it with my nephew, and he's like, wait, what is this? I want to do it. So I just wrote out, you can go there and print out these 3-word lists, but you know, I just put all these words in a bowl, like highly elevated emotional words. I just pick one of these words out of a bowl every day, and I write them on my hand, and you just try to be mindful of that and embody that, whether it's compassion or joy or gratitude. And, you know, obviously if you're in the work, you know, if you are embodying that energy, then that should be reflected back to you in the external world. But, you know, going back to the incubation periods, I mean, I kind of talk about it in the book, but there's so many of these like in between phases of your life. And I'm starting to learn that these are, and I have to be more mindful of this, but this is the dreaming phase. This is the creating phase. So you have to just keep doing the work, keep going inside, keep connecting with that feeling of what, like, I'm not even sure I know what I want next. I mean, there are some things that I know I want, but it's really those feelings. You know, I want freedom. I don't want to worry about money. You know, I want abundance. I want to work with amazing people who are changing the world. And I want the freedom to be able to pick and choose my clients. And, you know, that is sort of coming to fruition. I've had a lot of people reaching out to me about stuff, but, you know, I've just been buying time for sort of the right person to show up, and doing other little projects, writing projects, websites and stuff like that for people. Not necessarily stuff I want to be doing anymore, but I mean, ultimately what I want is, you know, my own book deal, and I want to be working full time on my own books. And I'm sure when the right time happens, that will happen. It's like, I just, you know, so this is kind of a dreaming phase. And I went down to Mexico to kind of start working on the next book, but, you know, I haven't formally done that. But at the same time, I've just been Post-it noting and taking notes of everything that's going on right now, and sort of these big, huge learnings that, you know, some of the biggest learnings of my life have happened in the last since September, October. And as we know, there's a reason why they call it growing pains. Mm-hmm. So, but then you grow through that, and then you're a new person.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And one of the things I found that's so true about, you know, Dr. Joe talks about it in his workshops, and I've experienced myself, and my partner has experienced the same. It seems like the more evolved you get and the bigger you get, the bigger the challenges come.
Wow.
They come hard because you're at a higher level, you're at a higher frequency, and you can deal with them more. So again, it goes back to, you know, you're in the fetal position one minute, and then the next minute you're living your dream. You're waking up in your dream. I had that experience yesterday almost for a second, and it's amazing. It really, really is. And it reminds you why we do this.
Yeah. I have this kind of like place I go in my mind where, like, it's the end of these, it's the end of this thing. And it's just like this joy and dropping to your knees in gratitude. And it was like when my house burned down, which is a whole other story, but I was like kind of drifting for like 7 months. I was living in a hotel. I was living at a friend's place. I was living in this sketchy short sell situation. It was like this amazing, beautiful condo that I could practically touch the Space Needle. Mount Rainier was right there, but it was completely soulless and lifeless because there was nothing in it except, furniture. There was no art, but there was this giant wall. And actually on one of the tabs on my website, like under the about section, there's like this little triangle of like 3 or 4 Post-it notes. And in that place was when I started to really kind of put together the book that I have put out. So it was this giant wall, and the only thing that were on it were like these 6 Post-it notes.
Wow.
But it was another phase where I was like, please let this be over, and it took about 7 months, which was really brutal, but within 24 hours, I got this amazing place to live. That was like modern and what I was imagining when I was traveling. So I had imagined this modern place and, great lighting and seeing all this art that I bought, like, lit, and like to do work for Bill Gates. And I was like, and it was really interesting work. And I was like along the waterfront, Myrtle Edwards Park in Seattle, which is like across the street from where I live. And I basically like collapsed on my knees, and I was like, thank fucking God, this is over. It's over, and I mean, that can happen any day. You just have to keep doing the work when you're going through whatever. And so
absolutely. And also, I will put the links to everything in the description to your website and your blog, to Dr. Joe's website for the book. And I will add that since I used to, when I first started this journey, I journaled every day. And it's so interesting going back and reading mine. And I quit about a year ago when I started actually waking up in my dream again as well, about a year ago. And I quit. And so I've been saying for the last probably 2 months, I need to start journaling again. I need to start and reading your book. I have now started writing my 5 things I'm grateful for and my 5 things I intend and create. So if there's something to be said for writing down on paper what you're grateful for. Definitely.
I mean, since I was young, I had dreamed about putting whatever the book would be out into the world. And I knew how I wanted people to consume it. I knew I wanted them to think, act, and feel. And, you were just telling me like, and I wanted people to be in bed and not be able to go to sleep. And before we started, you were just like, I just got to do one more chapter. And I should probably just very briefly speak about the title.
Yes.
Because it's called A Curious Year in the Great Vivarium Experiment. So right near where I live in Seattle, there is the Seattle Sculpture Garden. And there's this greenhouse thing, structure where, nobody really knows what it is. I mean, when I tell people about it, they're like, oh yeah, I've driven past that 100 times. What is that? And it's called the Newcomb Vivarium. And it was like this nurse log that fell like 30 miles out of town. And they brought it in here and they housed the structure around it, which simulates the natural environment. So I would always just kind of walk through there on my walk home one day. I would always walk through there on my walk home from work. And one day I was in there and I was like, oh my God, this is the idea for the book. So the definition of a vivarium is a place where plants or animals are kept under conditions simulating their natural environment as for research. So I was like, inside the vivarium is our life's journey. We're here, it's for research and for expansion and for screwing up and learning from those and getting these giant wounds which is where the light comes in, as Rumi would say. And but outside it is what we're all connected to, which is consciousness. It's the builder, it's the unifying principle of our existence. So obviously my year, A Curious Year, it was this experiment in gratitude and intention, surrender and trust. And then, you know, the Vivarium, it's the journey of life. You know, the root of Vivarium, viva or whatever, is Latin for life. And so, yeah, a lot of people are like, what the hell does that mean? I'm like,
Yeah.
just open the book.
Right.
Read the definition on the first
Yeah,
page.
I saw that. It's on the first page.
Yeah.
I saw that. I think it's a great title. I think it's eye-catching, and yeah, all they have to do is open it and read the first couple pages and they're hooked. So,
Yeah.
my last question for you. So my motto is love over fear. I am constantly preaching that to people. I preach to myself. I try to live by it all the time. So when you hear those words, love over fear, what does that mean to you in your own life?
Oof. I mean, it's the everything. You know, my book is about overcoming the self. It's about the fear, stepping out from the fear, because the fear is what keeps us from connection. It's what keeps us from the greatest expression of ourselves. It's what keeps us at war on this planet. And, you know, I don't know. It's, you know, it's something I battle every day. I mean, I think everybody does in this work. And, so much of it is an unconscious program. And, you know, who we are inside is reflected back to us externally. So just every day overcoming yourself and becoming more mindful of how that operates in your life and what it's keeping you from. And it's just such a terrible, shitty state to live in, you know. And my mom was a very like, our house was brought in all the stragglers. It was like my parents were parents to everybody. And my mom was an incredibly loving person, but she was this terribly fearful person. I mean, I don't know where that came from, but, you know, so one of my sisters was like, you know, maybe all the things you do, like buying a one-way ticket to India, buying a one-way ticket to Mexico, starting a band when you don't really know how to play guitar that well, like, you know, doing improv, whatever, like, these are all just sort of, you know, battles against the fear, push into the fear. And because in my experience is when you make the leap, the net appears, you know, or like when you're, you know, walk across the water and all of a sudden these rocks appear, you know, the path, you don't know but if you take the step, the next thing's going to show up, and it's going to keep leading you to wherever you want to go or whatever you want to create.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to add, Tim?
Just, you know, I always forget to plug my book. So, you know, my website is acuriousyear.com. And if you go there, there's a beautiful book trailer that was filmed in India. It looks like a movie trailer. It came out so much better than I ever could have imagined. I got some blogs in there that have been picked up in Joe's newsletter. One is called Love and the Construction of the Universe. That's like a part one of a part two, which is architects, ayahuasca, and tinfoil, which is one that I like. And yeah, check out the book. I would, you know, greatly appreciate the support, and I think you'll dig it, because it's this work in action. So
Absolutely, this work in action: A Curious Year in the Great Vivarium Experiment. I'll put, like I said, I'll put links in the description so people can go there and buy it. And I'll be waiting for book 2.
Yeah, it's called The Dream Bubble.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tim. I'm sure we'll see each other sometime in 2019 in this awesome community that we get to share. So
maybe in Whistler. Who knows?
Maybe in Whistler. There we go. We're putting it out there, right?
Yep.
Putting it out to the universe.
I don't know where I'm going next, but I'm just gonna create surrender, and trust. That's my motto.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time with us, especially after a red eye. And until next time.
The pleasure is mine.
Hey guys, thanks for taking the time to watch my interview with Tim today. If you liked it, please remember to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to check out more of my supernatural interviews. You can also find out more of my story and get your favorite Love Over Fear merchandise at www.detoxfromyourlife.com. Thanks, guys.